So they go back to Mary's hometown, to Nazareth, and as we're going to learn later in the story, this is the small podunk town where the rumor mill is still churning decades later as people are wondering who this Jesus is and why should we listen to him in his hometown. And look at the way Matthew frames this. So we have to go all the way back. Archelaus is reigning in Judah. This is verse 22. They were afraid to go there, and being warned in a dream, they went up to the district of Galilee. And he went and lived in a town called Nazareth. So was fulfilled what was said through the prophets, that he would be called a Nazarene. So once again, you have some moment of disappointment or tragedy or inconvenience happen in this family's life. And then Matthew reminds us there's a greater purpose at work. God is still fulfilling his redemptive purposes despite the disappointment that this all represents. Now, what on earth, what's he doing right here? So at least he quoted Hosea, and we knew it. He quoted Jeremiah, and he knew it. Who's he quoting this time? Well, he doesn't say, does he? What does he just say? The prophets. The prophets. And so, like the studious, one of you who has some sort of Bible software, and you're like, where does it say in the prophets he will be called a Nazarene? And you'll enter it in your little Bible software, and you'll get hits 0. 0. And the reason why it's 0 is because this phrase is found nowhere in the entire Old Testament. He will be called a Nazarene. What? What's happening here? Now, there's something interesting. So you notice in the previous 2 times, he quoted one prophet and then actual words. Here, he just says, the prophets. In other words, he's not quoting just one particular prophet. He's quoting an idea or a theme that runs through the prophets. And here, Matthew is at his total Bible geekiness. He reaches his height here of Bible geekdom. As because he's making a wordplay in Greek and in Hebrew at the same time. And people have puzzled over this. You guys, Christian readers have puzzled over this line in Matthew for 2,000 years. So I'm not going to wrap it all up right here. But at least I'll give my opinion on what I think he's doing, because it actually is really profound. It's Bible geek, yes, but it's really actually profound what he's doing right here. So there's a well-known Old Testament promise about the coming king from the line of David. It occurs in the prophet Isaiah, chapter 11. And the word that Isaiah uses is a metaphor to describe the coming king from the line of David. It says in Isaiah chapter 11, it says, a shoot will come up from the stump of Jesse, and from his roots a branch will bear fruit. He's considering the fact that in the exile, it's as if the line of David got like a tree, clear-cut, chopped, and you just have the stump. But God is going to fulfill his promises to David, and so this king, future king, the messianic king coming from the line of David is going to be like a little teeny tiny shoot, coming up right out of the growth of the old stump, a little green shoot. That's what he's saying right here. It's this metaphor. And from the branch of the line of Jesse and of David is going to come a new branch, a new king. And Isaiah was the first one to use this metaphor, but then Jeremiah picked it up, Zechariah picked it up, and so a very common kind of name for the coming Messiah was branch, stick man, or whatever, right? That was a common way that the Messiah was referred to in the prophets. Now, here's the word play here. So, and this is all connected to Nazareth and so on. So the name of Jesus' hometown, at least as they move there after all of this, is up there at the top left, Nazareth. That's how you say Nazareth, Nazareth. And then in Greek, it got translated into Nazareth, and then there you go. That's the name of the town we have today. The word that that Isaiah uses right here, branch, the Hebrew word for that is natsir. Come on, that's clever. You're supposed to chuckle a little bit, I think, like, Matthew, that's brilliant. That's brilliant what you've done right there. So, natsir. And then that word, if you were to try and spell it in Greek letters, it's the word Nazareth means stick town. It's the sticks, literally. It's the sticks. And pun intended by him, not me. So Nazareth is a tiny little village way up buried in the hills of Galilee. No name, podunk, hill country town. It's the sticks, literally. It is Stick Town. And so Matthew, he sees this connection here. Jesus grew up in Stick Town. And Isaiah said that the Messiah will be Stick Man. Holy cow, you guys, come on, that's great. So that's funny. And we are like, wow, that's clever. And Matthew is being clever, but there's actually something more profound happening here, because Isaiah developed this metaphor throughout the book. And he saw that the future coming king from the line of David, he would be this branch, this new growth. But then he goes on to develop in his poetry and prophecies that this king is going to be rejected by his people. And in fact, this king is going to die and absorb the sins of his own people into himself in his death. And one of the most famous poems where he depicts that, the rejected, suffering servant king, is in Isaiah 53. And can you guess what he calls the metaphor he uses to talk about the suffering servant king? Isaiah 53. For he, the suffering servant king, grew up like a young branch, like a root out of dry ground. He had no beauty or majesty to attract us to him, no great appearance to attract us to him. He was despised and forsaken by others. He was a man of sorrows, familiar with grief. Surely he took up our pain and bore our suffering. We considered him punished by God, stricken by him, afflicted. But in reality, he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him. It's actually by his wounds that we are healed. When Jesus met and was trying to gather his first circle of followers, we're told in the Gospel of John chapter 1, he came across this guy Nathanael. And Nathanael found out that Jesus was from Stick Town. And what does Nathanael say? Nazareth. Can anything good come out of Nazareth? Answer, no. No. So, and all of this is connected here. Matthew wants us to see that even the place where Jesus grew up was a seeming disappointment to his parents, actually becomes the symbol of what Jesus came to do. Jesus comes to address the human condition. Where is God? Where is God in the midst of the human tragedy? And with all of these three stories, Matthew's trying to get us to see that the God revealed in Jesus, he is Emmanuel. But he is not here to make all of our wildest dreams come true. In fact, you and I live in a world where God so honors the dignity and the moral decisions of image-bearing human beings that he has allowed us to create hell on earth. And it's not because God is bad, it's because we're bad. That's the point of the biblical story. And so where is God in the midst of this huge mess that we've created? And what Matthew's inviting us to see is that God has actually become subject to all of the same terrors and tragedies that we experience. That's what these stories are about. He's Stick Man, right? He's the Messiah, he's great. He grows up in Nazareth, which is connected through this elaborate wordplay, I'll give you that, but to this very profound idea that God has come in Jesus to redeem us by suffering on our behalf. Not to make our wildest dreams come true, apparently. They may come true. They may not come true. And Matthew's saying that has nothing to do with the character of Jesus. Because what Jesus reveals is that the heart of God is to enter into the human tragedy because he loves us. He loves us utterly. And that in Jesus, God is subject to the evils and the disappointments and the tragedies. Jesus was born with a price on his head, and he will be executed with a price on his head. And so whatever, the myth of religious fulfillment, the idea that Jesus is here to make my dreams come true, is so pervasive. And most of us, if I were to, ask and kind of tease that out, most of us would say, no, of course I don't think that. But then when our lives go south and we can't catch a break and everything goes wrong, we end up ticked at Jesus because he's not making our wildest dreams come true. And we're like, what's going on here? And Matthew chapter 2 has a very pastoral message for us. It's that God is with us in the person of Jesus. And Jesus, his parents, his youth, every part of his life was marked by the disappointment of human existence. And it's the same disappointment that marks most of our lives, too. And the only hope out of this whole mess that the story gives us, then, is that this suffering servant will bring healing through his wounds, because God's love and commitment in Jesus to disappointing people whose flaws and failures have made our world what it is, that his commitment and his love for our world and for each of us is so utterly strong and passionate that even our own sin and mortality and the evil that the Herods and the Pharaohs cause can't overcome his love for our world. And that's what the meaning of resurrection is. The hope for our world is the resurrection of Jesus. And that's where Matthew's gospel is going to end.